Thank you. I must say I was delighted when Fred gave me a call and said, could I possibly make this dinner? And I must say, Ian, I'm truly honored to have the opportunity to speak on the occasion of this celebration of you and your 80th birthday. I have to say, the call itself brought back a whole set of memories, and just listening to these speeches, I was sitting there jotting notes of different, this flood of things that came back. And I certainly, remember very much. It brings back this career. And for me, that was a decade where I think all of us who were in that decade felt very privileged to get a chance to actually work with what were some of the greatest economists of the time, great public servants who really did believe that their role was to advise, cajole, sometimes educate, sometimes tell politicians what they had to do to act in the best interest of society and the things that they should not do if they were going to act in the best interest of society. I think when we were there, we regarded them as heady days, and I think there was a belief that government could solve problems. The world's problems seemed more solvable when government capabilities seemed greater than perhaps people think today. Now, it was not long after I came to Ottawa, which was almost 4 decades ago, or I age you there, Ian, but it's true, where I heard of this pair, Stuart and Gorbett, who were actually, I think at the time, although they were from the Bank of Canada, camped out at the Department of Energy doing policy analysis. And word was that if you wanted to travel with Stuart and Gorbett, you had to be able to take steaks and martinis at lunch, and you had to come up with systemic solutions, not tactical responses to policy issues. I was pretty sure I probably wasn't up to either of those. But I would get the chance to get to know and become friends with both of them, and eventually work directly for Ian when Joe Clark was Prime Minister, and we negotiated what turned out to be one of several energy deals, and to put to our accomplishments, managed to contribute to a budget which eventually brought down the government. So the rest is history after that. I always say to people, well, everyone has history, I just have too much history. But it is great to have the opportunity to speak here and celebrate Ian, who I think all of us recognize influenced us enormously, allowed us to learn public policy. And as I say, what we regarded at the time were pretty unusual times with unique economic challenges. Great debates about inflation, oil price shocks, income distribution, pension reforms, the Nature Confederation, U.S. current account deficits, and very targeted protection policies. I can remember as I was sitting there listening to this, sitting with Ian in Washington, where an U.S. official, Ian did his usual, just slouching in the chair, being perfectly calm as this person ranted against us. And he said, "Is there nothing I can say that will get you angry?" And Ian just took a cigarette. And of course, debates about the ultimate size of government. And through it all, Ian always had a view. But more importantly than having a view, what he loved was debate, as everyone has said, grounded in an integrated framework. And when you came forth with policy ideas, you had to show that you had actually analyzed them in their full implications. What's interesting, when I sat down and started to jot down these notes, I thought, well, what did I learn from you? And what's interesting is it was actually the personal things that most stuck with me, the human issues that most stuck with me. Ian had a fantastic way of dealing with people that was both respectful and made you grow. If you came to him with what he regarded as not such a great idea, he would always lean back, draw heavily on his cigarette, and say, yes, no, we could do that. As Alan said earlier, I agree with everything they say, but, and I could see why that would really be a good idea. Maybe we should examine this issue and that issue, and then gradually you would find and realize it wasn't such a good idea at all. On the other hand, he knew you had a winner when he said, "Why would you do that? This is a crazy idea." And then he would attack, and you knew, I got an idea he really likes. Today, I would say, would be a perfect world for Ian. Ian loved problems. He loved problems that had global dimensions. He was sensitive, as everyone has mentioned, to the distributional consequences of economic patterns. He was a master of the strength and limitations of central bank policy. He recognized consumer and producer confidence as critical issues. He liked to analyze new economic developments, paradigm shifts, which require policymakers to think differently, understand second and third round impacts of policy changes, and force them to invent new tools. What could be better than today's world? A world of a financial crisis driven by greed, poor regulation, resulting in indebtedness of the public sector, which in turn limits public policy instruments available. Set in the context of growing globalization, a trend which makes many people in the world better off, but many average workers in advanced economies worse off. Activist central bankers push the limits of policy to the point where financial repression is widespread, but still economies are slow to recover. Europe is beset with the task of building the necessary fiscal structure to match the implications of a community currency, but in the midst of a financial crisis where the horses truly have left the barns, and many nations have borne well beyond their ability to pay back, making defaults almost inevitable. I'm sure, Ian, as you look at the world today, you say, this all looks faintly familiar. The names have changed, the context is different, but the policy requirement is the same. The need to build a consensus around the causes of the problems and practical solutions. I have no doubt that were you still in government, you would be leading the charge to build that global consensus, and the world would be well served by your efforts. Thank you. Thank you for making a difference in my career, and thank you for all the people who you touched.